This is how I'm getting into August. I don't know about you, but you better get your groove on as well. You're on Jump 316 on Family Radio 316 and Family TV, the station where we're keeping Jesus on the airwaves. My name is Benjamin Wanka. You're not on the wrong station. This is it. It's just that James Okumu holding fort for him. I don't know what he's doing this morning. I hope that he's not watching just to see the kind of things that I'm doing right now. But being a Monday, we have Motivational Monday, and I have a beautiful lady with me, Judy Mzungu. She's just going to be talking to us about finding purpose through rejection. That bad things and things that happen to you, you come back stronger, you come back better, and you still find purpose in the same thing that used to bring you down, because the love, of a mother and just growing up and family, all these things are all functional and supposed to improve us in one way or another. And sometimes when we miss out on something, we miss out on what we were supposed to get, dysfunction creeps in, and most of us never recover from that. We keep on going through life with excuses of, this is who I am, this is how things have always been. But it is one thing to realize something, get the strength to heal. After healing, you change. After changing, you now begin speaking wisdom and transforming lives just the way yours has been transformed. All right, so let's get on into it. Judy, how are you? Wow, it's amazing to have you today. You're looking beautiful. Kama hivi ndio watu wameanza August, sijui by November tutakuwa tunakaje. All right. Okay, Judy, I just seem to be having a little bit of a problem getting through to you. I can't get your audio, so let me just fix that right now. Very good morning to you. Hope that you're psyched up and ready to just go into August and go into this week. Like I had told you, I have Judy with me. We are talking about finding purpose through rejection and just getting to let her motivate us this particular day. There's just people that have been through a lot, through so much, and that is what makes them exceptional. Sometimes if we don't experience the highs, the lows, the emotions of life, sometimes you just cruise through life like everything is okay. But sometimes it's never just like that and that smooth. And Judy is just here to share with us her experience. Judy, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, I was saying you're the one that looks like August, I'm telling you. The rest of us are catching up.
Asante, kujeni nyuma.
Kujeni nyuma. We might overtake you by the time it's 30th, my friend. You better be humble.
I'll celebrate you, by the way.
Great. It's so good to have you today. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, nashukuru.
Yeah, we're just really honored to have you, and we're talking about finding purpose through rejection. And let's just begin from the key, the thing itself, where the bomb just blew up. What happened?
The bomb blew up at birth.
Okay. And boom, we had you. Uh-huh.
The bomb blew up at birth, but actually, honestly, something happened at the beginning, just at the very beginning, but I didn't realize its effect on me until many, many years later, and I had to live with it almost like the most of my life. What happened to me is that my mother was born into a polygamous home, and she was actually forced into marriage. And she got married rather into a polygamous home, and she had been forced into marriage. And then she got 3 girls before me. And so when she got 3 girls before me, getting pregnant again, she definitely then was expecting a boy, because in those days, that time and age, you had to get a boy to kind of validate your position within the home.
Yeah.
So here she was already, in a forced marriage situation. Here she was with 3 girls. Therefore, she was just expecting this one bullet was what was going to work for her. Wow. And then when I was born, then she realized she got another girl. And now thinking about it, now I understand that it was postnatal depression, but my mother rejected me at birth. So she didn't breastfeed me for a while, and the nurses had to convince her to breastfeed me. but she never took me for any vaccination. To date, I have no form of vaccination.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Wow. So, and I mean, the way she told us the story much later, I guess you would say it maybe not knowing or not understanding the implications of it, but it was important for me now when I look back, for me to understand exactly what happened, because she would say that the nurses would come, in those days when vaccination was, even today, when polio is happening, guys come, but those days it was more, they were more, what is called, serious about it. Nurses would literally come to have you have your child inoculated, but my mom would hide me.
Ooh.
I think in her mind, she wanted to do away with me.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's how I tell you that the bomb happened at birth. So that rejection must have registered in my mind somehow, in my psychology somehow, because growing up, I remember I was a very angry child. I had a serious temper. I would have tantrums and hit my head on the floor.
Wow.
So that's how I remember myself as a child.
Yeah.
And then growing up, I know that I had anger issues. And I know that I kept facing rejection after rejection after rejection. And I just didn't understand how or why, you know? Yeah, because deep down, I knew I was a good person. I am a people person, but then something would happen and you would just trigger, and it would just be, I'd justify it, but then I had an amazingly bad temper. I remember sometimes I'd feel like I want to open my mouth so that air blows in to cool me down. That's how bad it was. Until I read a book by Tim LaHaye, Why You Act the Way You Do, and I started praying about the anger issue. But even in as much as I prayed for the anger issue, it may have subsided, but it never went.
Yeah.
Until much later, when I understood what the root of the problem was, then I dealt with it.
All right. You just brought into mind something that somebody said to me. They said that, the whole thing about taking a child to school for the first time, and then you leave them at the gate and they're crying and you have to go, because, African parents, that unachana naye alie, atajisort na atazoea shule. And there's this person that was telling me that is very traumatizing for children, and that's how they begin even getting into issues of rejection. I didn't know that. And he said when he had his child, even at that tender age when the child didn't know what was happening, he would literally go to classroom with the child and sit over there with the baby. And so the first whole week, he sat in class with the child. So the child always knew that daddy's around. He's actually a man. He knew that daddy was around. And then the second week, he told her, I am outside. And then the third week, then he would go and come. So by the time, it just gave time for the child to be able to transition into that kind of life. And so when you're talking about psychological effects of that kind of a rejection, even from a tender age, we will think that there's no effect. But it's really taking root. Something is happening.
It's true, because I didn't have a connection with my mother. I'm the child who cried daddy. I never cried mommy.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was interesting, because my mom says even when they went to hospital, even the nurses and doctors could not understand. There's something different about this child. I cried daddy.
Yeah. Wow.
Everyone cries mommy. I didn't.
I know. When you're scared, the first thing you say is, "Hey, mama angu."
Yeah.
So how did that affect you, especially psychologically? Let's just talk about the effects of that, even as you started growing and kept on going.
The effects of that, okay, first and foremost, I honestly didn't feel like I really fitted in within my own family setting.
Yeah.
Two things happened. One, the three sisters ahead of me they have a more predominantly phlegmatic personality. They are calmer and all. I had a different personality. You understand? So that again posed another challenge for my mother in terms of having to raise a child who was different. But don't forget, I actually had to fight for my life from the time I was a child.
Wow.
So my fighting spirit had already been built inside of me.
Wow.
So that then was a challenge, because I remember, I remember being compared and, being asked, why can't you be like the rest of them? Why can't you be like the rest of them? And truthfully, I actually subdued to a given extent. To date, if you meet me for the first time and you're not comfortable with me, I'm not comfortable with you, the first person that you will see is a phlegmatic. Because that's how I was conditioned. I was conditioned to be calm and all. So only until you come very close to me or you find me in my comfortable space, then now my real personality checks in.
And so while growing up, when did it hit you that this is what you were dealing with? Because sometimes I'm just thinking, before you literally got to understand yourself and what's happening, so you are in this place and there's just, you're there's how you're behaving, there's how your behavior is just showing out to people, there's how they are condemning you. At what particular point did you come and realize this is what I'm dealing with, or you did not even realize at any given point?
I didn't realize. Like I say, I just grew up. I was, kind of normal. I was functioning. That's the other thing about sometimes when you carry wounds, you actually do function. I was functioning. I went to school, cleared, did my things. But the only thing that I remember very, very clearly is that in as much as sometimes I did good as far as I was concerned, I always found rejection. That was one. Two, the other thing that I also realized is that I actually had anger issues, but I would justify it. And I would say, they've done. So, you're kind of just justifying my anger and stuff like that. But deep down, there was something within me that longed, I guess, for acceptance. There's something inside of me that longed for love. There's something inside of me that just longed to go and find that one person who would just accept me for who I was. Remember, I didn't find it to a given extent within my own family setting. It just didn't ring it to me that way, but that's exactly what happened to me. That's how it registered. It felt like I really didn't fit in.
Wow. Because, family is that place of affirmation. They're supposed to protect you. They're the first people that inculcate into you values and all these kind of things, and you didn't have that. So I'm very interested, especially knowing how your relationships were, especially while growing up with people and also with your siblings, with your parents as well. And also, you've said something that is very important, that there was just something, this longing inside of you. Because you see, these symptoms are what we keep on showing, but then people just brush them off. It becomes very difficult to correct someone, and you don't know that whatever it is probably that they're dealing with is too much, just deep in, buried over there. So how was your relationships, and then also some of those symptoms, if you could give us, that you faced along the line?
Within the home setting, I basically, like I say, just functioned, but I knew that I didn't fit in. There's just something inside of you that tells you, there's something different about you. Remember, my personality was also different because, like I said, I grew up fighting. I had to fight to survive. So that gave me a stronger personality, Yes, but did I try? Yes, because now that's the other thing. When someone has gone through a traumatic experience, they don't necessarily withdraw. Sometimes they try to love, so that they can also find acceptance. So one of the things that I also found about myself within my own family setting is that I was very protective of family, because I knew that this is what family is supposed to be. I knew that I protected. I knew that I longed for acceptance. I fought hard for my family, but sometimes I felt like I got the short end of the stick. You get it? Then, as far as even friendships are concerned, I had friendships, yes, but they were not, I would have outbursts. of anger, should something just go wrong, I wouldn't spare you. I would tell you the way I feel it and, justify it.
I can imagine having a friend like you. You just tell me, Benjamin, I'm cheating. Okay, so.
Yeah, you get, yeah. So there was that. But the other end of the whatever, like even, for example, even as far as work situations were concerned, I would deliver. Because I was a driven person. Remember that this made me a fighter. So I would deliver. I was driven. But I was that wounded person that, for example, if you came at me, you'd find a wounded tiger. Or tigress for that matter. Yes. So now those were the things. And I basically lived life. By the way, got saved. Like I said, prayed for the spirit of anger, but never. Or is it against the spirit of anger? But even as I went on through life, I somehow never found acceptance within circles. I wasn't the person, for example, you would find in a clique. Now we'll talk about that later. I wasn't the kind of person that you would find, for example, even in a sales team, going out at 10 o'clock to have tea with the rest of the people. There's just something about me that never really fitted in. And this is how I lived for the greatest part of my life. I discovered it late in life.
All right.
Yes, so, actually. So how I... Do you want me to say?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So you introduced me as Judy Mzungu. I think the name was too long for you, for the family, for the poster. But I'm Judy Mzungu Hakula.
Okay.
So Hakula is my husband's name. Mzungu is my surname. But the reason why I retained my surname, for those who probably may wonder, why did you just change your name, is because I got married much later in life. I got married at 40. So at 40, you have already built a personal brand around the name Mzungu. It became difficult for me then to change, and that's how I just added the name Hakula. So I actually found me and discovered how damaged I was when I got married.
Really?
Yes.
And that was at 40?
At 40.
So all these years, like all through your 30s and all that, wow. Yes. I'd really love to know how that healing came about and just how you found yourself at that particular place and you started saying, this is what is happening, this is what is happening, this is what happened. And I know because I don't know if we should just get into marriage, but you'll tell me about that. Welcome to Jam 316. My name is Benjamin Wak. I'm holding fort for James Okumo. Good morning. How are you doing? We're just having a conversation with Judy, and we're talking about rejection. We're talking about finding purpose through rejection. There's Liz Wambuyu saying, I do agree, Benjamin. Sometimes we do mistakes without our knowledge. And in that way, sometimes we make the situation become even more difficult. Yet it may be something small that we could have been able to deal with it before things get out of hand. Children are very sensitive, and we need to understand each, no matter how many they are, they have different personality and different tastes. For sure, rejection is a very serious thing. It can be transferred from one generation to another generation if you don't recognize and deal with it. There's another particular one that I had seen here as well. Okay. And, I think one of the things that Liz has just pointed out that it becomes very important is for us to just be able to take each child differently, because they say that, how many daughters are worth a son? I look at my parents right now, and most of the things that my parents are enjoying is what my sisters are doing. And so sometimes the value of a child can never be placed on their gender. It literally has to be an individual and purpose and what God has given and just input in the hearts of those people. We're on Motivational Monday with Judy. Judy.
Yes.
Please help us understand. You know what I love about you is the person that you are right now. After you've been through all that. I mean, that's strength.
Let me say it's the grace of God. And sometimes now when I think about it, if you find it, then if you find purpose within the patterns of your life, you're good. You get it? Yeah. Now, let me not go ahead of myself. Let's talk about the healing.
Let's journey it through.
All right. Yes. So you were asking. I remember at first when we were talking about how I found healing.
Yeah.
I got married, and when I got married, of course, remember that I'm a driven person.
Yes.
So I'm confident. Me mwenyewe niko confident, and everyone around me knows I'm confident. So I know that I'm good. I'm I'm all this. You found a gem, my friend.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into marriage. But then what happened for me is that someone came so close to me that I had to see myself for who I really was. And maybe for the first time, I then began to understand or see my faults. Because what happened, the first thing I realized is that I placed a very high demand on my husband, a demand that no man could actually meet. Remember that I had never known acceptance. So you are clinging on to someone and setting such a high bar that they could hardly ever meet. If they did something that for you read like disloyalty, you react so badly because I had learned disloyalty over my life.
Wow.
So it felt like here I am, again, married and finding disloyalty. So over a period of time, I guess, then I began to see myself correctly. I began then to speak to him about what had happened to me. Some things that sometimes, honestly, I had not said in dating. And
Can I, especially now that you mentioned dating, how long did you date before you got married?
About 2 years, let me say. 2 years or one and a half, thereabouts. But don't forget, yes.
It didn't show.
And it didn't show.
Cool. I just needed to get that across to people so that they understand this thing. There's some things about you.
Let me tell you what. Yes, because the thing about it is you have lived it yourself. You have lived in the prison of your life for so long. You have learned to function within
You're perfect.
That prison. Yes.
You're good, a go-getter, strong woman.
I tell you, yes. And that's how, by the way, the society models us. So without you knowing, and because you have drive and everything, and you're making it happen, guess what? You think you're okay.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. So when my husband came in and, I had to check myself and really see myself through the mirror of what someone else was seeing. And I had to open up and be vulnerable. And begin to share and begin to narrate. That's how my healing began.
Wow.
And I found acceptance in him. And I remember, I think when finally, I realized I had healed was the day we were watching TV, and then there was someone who was talking about rejection. I was like, hey, that thing is very bad. Then she told me, Judy, do you know how hard it was? It was like I was looking at someone who is out there.
That's a good one. That thing is very bad.
That thing is very bad. Then my husband looked at me and told me, Judy, do you know how hard it was to live with you for the first 6 months of marriage?
Wow. And Judy, do you know how many marriages you're healing right now? Because
by
so
God's
many of us
grace, I prayed.
We don't understand our partners. They were these amazing people that we fell in love with, and then they come into marriage, and there's all these things happening, and you're thinking, the person I married.
Yes.
I don't want this version of you.
And they are not wrong. It's just that they are broken and wounded.
Yeah.
And if you approach even a marriage relationship from that context, it becomes then much, much easier to navigate the issues that you will deal with.
Yeah. And I would just like to know, especially in marriage, there's always that one thing that happens that, just brings you back to yourself and, hapa nikiendelea hivi, I have got to, just deal with this thing. Like, I can't go on like this. What was that particular thing? Or it was just the constant love and just your husband being there and having conversations and getting open and vulnerable until you realized, by the way, I'm not okay?
I can't tell you I can't, clearly just tell you the progression.
Yeah.
yeah, I can't tell you clearly the progression, but all I know now when I look back is that I was allowed a space to be vulnerable. I was allowed a space to be accepted. I was allowed a space to be, and that then allowed me to get out of the prison and then evolve into myself.
All right. So you discovered yourself in marriage. So after you discovered yourself in marriage, how has the journey been about that, and how, just go about touching people and letting them know and just having their lives change as well?
Yes. So what happened to me is that now when I took the healing, what happened is I lost another job about 4 years ago. So when I lost this job, it was a season for me now when I look back, was God now removing me from the crowd to really deal with me. And, really it was another dark season or a dark prison of my life.
Yeah.
And in that dark prison, that was through this whole process. I've gotten married, and then now God took me into that season where I was by myself and had to rediscover certain things about myself, had to rediscover gifts and abilities that were hidden within inside of me for all this time. I remember as a child, I was a natural speaker. As a child, I was a natural writer. But that only came out into the fore in this period that I was withdrawn, in this whole period. And I believe to death that one of the things that clouds us as far as our potential, as far as our purpose, as far as connecting in relationships is concerned, is the wounds of our past. And that became my burden. Let me tell you, Pastor, when I healed and then began to walk in the light of God, what then happened is that I began to see myself very clearly. My gifts, my abilities started coming out to the fore. I became a better person as an individual in terms of relating with people. And then I found my purpose. I found, okay, every part of my journey, the rejection and everything, I began to see it so clearly that now I can harness the power of what it was, that what could have taken me down is that thing that I'm saying, you know what, look, I came out. It's possible for everyone to come out. All you need is that space to be vulnerable. You said maybe you should all get married. Maybe not. How about if you can be saved? That even by the time that you're getting into marriage, you are at a better place to connect. It saves you a few years of marriage. Let me say, I'm blessed that I got married to a man who could stand by me through that healing journey. Not every one of us will have that opportunity. So how much better if, for example, you discover yourself much earlier? How much better if, for example, even within the marriage situation, you look at yourself and you realize, you know what, actually there's this thing that I need to deal with. All I am gifted now to do is to see and hold other people's hands and tell them, you know what, you too can heal. You too can find freedom. You too can go back to finding your purpose. Guess what? I found my purpose in my 40s after healing. I am convinced and I am convicted that purpose can only be found after truly people heal, because the wounds of the past, they come to damage your soul. When your soul is damaged, you're not in a position to see very clearly where God wants you to go. You're not able to hear the voice of God. So many of us are operating on autopilot, basically just touching the surface of what God created us to be. But until and unless we take the healing journey, then we can go back, find that canvas, the blank canvas that God gave planet Earth when He deposited each and every one of us on Earth. That's what happened to me when I went back to finding that blank canvas only after I healed.
Wow. You know what I'm just learning from you, and my take home today is it's amazing what we can accomplish if we treat people better, if we just become good people. Because we don't know, I bring me into spaces, I bring me into places, I bring me before people. And me comes with experiences, come with issues, situations, all these things that I've had about my life. And, for some of us, we are the we are the ones that are healthy, and we're looking probably at our spouse, or our spouse is looking at us, and they know that this person is not okay because of this and this and this. I think the motivation that we're getting today is to, because they're not behaving normally, it means something is wrong, and we need to be invested in their lives, and literally that will also begin the healing process for them.
Yes. And then again, when you said if you treat people better, how far you can go, you have no capacity to treat people better if you're wounded.
Wow. Say that again.
You have no capacity to treat people better if you are wounded. Oof. So we have to take the healing journey, and that's my message to us as the body of Christ. The reason why we have not been able to be the salt and the light of the earth is not that necessarily we are bad people. We mean well. I meant well, even with my temper tantrums. But I was wounded. I had no capacity.
Let me just ask you this.
Yes.
What are some of the steps that you have taken or you took just in 2 minutes? Probably you just sat and meditated and looked at yourself, and you're intentional about certain things that literally began making progress and just making steps in your life. What are some of those things?
One, I had to look back and acknowledge. I had to look back and accept, this is what happened to me. Two, I had to look at this thing from the eyes of my mother, which meant that I then would not blame her. I then would have empathy. I then would have understanding. What did that look for me? It looked like me saying, Mom was forced into marriage. That must have been tough for her.
Yeah.
That's me saying, she was rejected in her marriage. That was tough for her.
Okay.
She thought I was the only card. She maybe lost it. Yeah. It's okay. Her thinking was limited. That's you understand, eh?
Yes.
So that was the next step. Because many times, even within the church, we talk about forgiveness. You cannot forgive unless you heal.
Yeah.
So when I took that journey and I began now to see my mother clearly, then I was in a position to let go. That today when I speak about that story, I'm not speaking about it from the point of
bitterness,
of anger or bitterness. No. And that's just to tell someone who thinks that when you want to forgive someone or you want to heal from a wound or something, that you have to go and tell the person. I had to deal with this thing long after my mother had died.
Wow.
I had no opportunity to go and talk to her and say anything, but I rested it in my heart.
All right. What are the next steps from then? So at least you accepted, you went back and just looked at what had happened. You looked at the whole situation from your mom's perspective, and then...
Yes. And then now finally then, because that was now opening the wound. Mm-hmm. You understand? Eh? Yes. Then now I had to begin to clean it up. Okay. That actually is the toughest part of the journey, because people have been used to living with the wound, with the scar for a very long time, and they don't want to go back. But remember that you have to take the journey back. Okay. And then when you come out now, by the power of the Holy Spirit, now that's where we come in as believers, because you're not doing it by your own strength. That's the difference. You have the Holy Spirit to help you to overcome. And so you need the healing grace of God to help you to overcome. But the reason why we come in as coaches, and the reason why I found the burden to do this as a person, is because many times it's easy for you to want to remain in the prison of captivity because it's easier to stay there. Yes. Remember that just as much as it's difficult to get into captivity because you're going through the experience, it's a lot difficult again to come out, because it's easier to get comfortable in that place. But someone has to hold your hand so that you come out and encounter the wounds as you see the memory, and then come out to the other side.
All right. Just 1 minute. I just want you to drop something and just tell us, your last thoughts just before we let you go.
My last thoughts. I want to tell anyone who is there, who is discouraged, who has been wounded, that there is hope for restoration. Yeah. And you can truly find your purpose. It doesn't matter at whatever point in your life. I found my purpose in my 40s. You can do it. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. You can do it. You can heal. You can bounce back and find your purpose.
All right, my friends, those are the words of Judy Mzungu, and we're so much delighted to have you today. Thank you for so much for just sparing time and motivating someone in this particular month, this particular week. I think we will take some time and just go into that.
This and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.